United Airlines launching a $1.5 billion share buyback program. That's its first since before COVID-19, when airlines received more than $50 billion in government aid that prohibited buybacks and dividends. The president of the Flight Attendants union that represents crews at various airlines says that money belongs to frontline workers. Joining us right now is Sara Nelson, the Association of Flight Attendants International President. And Sara, this is a complicated issue. I want to make sure our viewers understand it. So we should put this in the backdrop that United Airlines flight attendants authorized a strike last month if they cannot reach a negotiation with the company over where you stand on your next contract. So let's put it in that backdrop. You're upset because you don't have a contract right now, and they're offering to buy back shares, correct?
Yes, Becky. And as you know, this goes back to 2020 when we did get that payroll support program that included the ban on stock buybacks and dividends and a cap on executive compensation. And the workers were on the front lines saving the airline and keeping it going. And we saved the airline both with that government plan, but also with our work. And we were supposed to be in negotiations then. So negotiations are 3 years delayed at this point. We're the last employee group without a contract. And Scott Kirby seems to be trying to echo the words of Herb Kelleher in his messages to employees, but it's hypocritical and really dishonest because he's not sending decision makers to the table. I have done dozens of contract negotiations, and I know what it looks like when a company actually wants to work honestly with you to get improvements to workers. And that is not what's happening at United Airlines. And instead, they are sending this money to Wall Street rather than investing in the frontline workers who are with the passengers more than anyone else.
Okay, so you all are looking for things, a double-digit pay increase of 28% plus 4% a year after that. You're looking for better retirement pay, more flexibility with schedules. You're looking for retroactive pay for time negotiating, time for long waits being paid on flight, in between flights, and pay for time when the plane is actually boarding, which I have to say I'm very surprised that is not part of the pay that you receive. That seems like a significant amount of time. However, United Airlines, I believe, has offered to match the American Airlines deal that was ratified last month by the flight attendants, and that includes a lot of those issues, a 20.5% pay raise, retroactive pay for time negotiating, a pay for boarding time. What's wrong with the deal that American Airlines flight attendants accepted?
The American Airlines flight attendants did accept a contract that sets part of the new standard for the industry. And the standard is being set at Southwest, at American, at Alaska with the TA. It hasn't been ratified yet, but that has been locked in with agreements from management. And that is not what United Airlines is doing. They're still looking for concessions in healthcare. They're looking for concessions in scheduling. No one else, pilots, machinists, anyone across the industry has accepted concessions. That's not what this is. And so they continue to delay the negotiations with these requests for concessions. The pay increases, of course, are going to be at that level. We know that already. There is a framework for this contract. And if they get to the table and work with us earnestly, get the ridiculous concessions off the table that is not in place for anyone else, we can reach an agreement very quickly. But they are not sending people to the table to do that. Let me just clarify, because I've read a lot of reports trying to figure out what the actual story is. Have they agreed to match everything with the American Airlines flight attendants, or they have offered to match with concessions, or they have agreed to match but you want concessions? Which is it? They have not agreed to match on all of the compensation. They have not agreed to match for the time on the ground. They have not agreed to match with retroactive pay. None of that
American did agree to? I just want to make sure this is an apples to apples comparison. That American Airlines did agree to.
American got all of those things and without concessions. And so this is nowhere, what they are doing at the table right now is nowhere near what the American Airlines flight attendants reached. And let's also recognize, too, that United Airlines is in a much better financial position than American Airlines is. They have more money to give to the flight attendants, and the flight attendants have been waiting a very long time for this. So this is not that hard. They're not going to completely match American, but they're not even doing that right now. And the concessions that they have on the table are just a delay tactic, in addition to the fact that they're sending very low-level managers, so they're not showing any interest in actually reaching a deal.
Okay, my understanding is that the buyback of shares, United has said that this is to buy back shares that were originally issued to the U.S. Treasury under the pandemic-era CARES Act and payroll support program that currently represents about 7% of the airline's current market cap. So far, they've only bought back about 2 million of the 6.4 million warrants that were issued. And in that case, they'd actually be buying back shares to pay back the U.S. taxpayer, not Wall Street.
So they're doing that, but that is over and above what they're doing with the $1.5 billion in this stock buyback program. Those are two separate things. Other airlines have done that. They've also been dishonest about saying that Alaska has given returns to shareholders. It's in that same bucket that you're talking about, Becky, that's related to those warrants. Delta Airlines has given dividends, and they should. They've made more money than anyone else, and they should be rewarding those shareholders with those dividends. The stock buybacks
the stock buybacks reward shareholders in the same way, and it's more tax efficient, actually. If you're a big shareholder, you get paid back instead of getting dividends that are taxed. You can own a larger portion of the company by having those stock buybacks come through. So if you're in favor of dividends, I don't understand the problem with the stock buyback.
The problem is, Becky, is that there was an agreement that they would not give these stock buybacks across the industry until they reinvested in the operation. As you know, there were all the operational meltdowns that really disserviced passengers, and until they reinvested in the employees and finished these negotiations. Because across the industry, as we hit the pandemic, there were supposed to be negotiations after 20 years of austerity following 9/11 with all of the bankruptcies, then the consolidation in the industry. This was the first opportunity for employees to move forward. And United Airlines flight attendants are one of the last groups standing, waiting for those improvements that are long overdue. And so these stock buybacks were not supposed to go anywhere near to Wall Street until all of these contracts are resolved. They're going back on what they agreed to do.
The idea of a strike, I know it has to come after the mediation that you're in right now is ended and then a 30-day cooling off period, but it does indicate that you all could go on strike right around the Thanksgiving holidays. Just asking, as somebody who's bought a United flight for my daughter to come home from college, is that the case? Do I need to worry about that at this point? Do other travelers need to worry about what's going to happen at the holidays?
We don't have a deadline right now, Becky, so I can't say that for sure, but we are in the final stages of negotiations here, and that is up to the government, and the flight attendants clearly are ready to do what we need to do. I think that a strike is a very, very important part of the collective bargaining process, and the last thing we want to do is go on strike. What we want to do is encourage United Airlines to reach an agreement with us. And right now, they are showing no interest in doing that. That's the biggest problem here, Becky. They're not getting to the table and seriously talking with us about reaching an agreement.
Sarah, they've been trying to wrap me for a couple of minutes. I really have to go, but a very quick last question, because we have Scott Kirby coming up later this morning, the CEO. If they were to offer to match everything that American Airlines has offered that the flight attendants signed off on last month, would you accept that offer?
Look, the flight attendants at United have a different contract, and so there will be some different things in the contract, but they're not even meeting that standard right now. So let's get serious and talk about that standard and what flight attendants at United deserve, because as the airline is making more money, there should be more to share with United flight attendants.